that's the fuel filter right there. We got to get that off there. And you can see there's not a lot of room. See how close it is to the transmission lines. That oil filter's in the way. A lot of people have to take the fuel pump off to be able to get those off because the threads are terrible. So I was able to get it off, and I just loosely put it on there so you can see how tight it is there. We'll get you over to the workbench and show you what I used. Okay, so what I did was channel locks wouldn't get in there. My channel locks that I had wouldn't open up wide enough. Tried grabbing these tabs with it, wouldn't work. And I didn't want to really mar that up real bad. So what I did is I went down to my dad's house, and he has this old oil filter wrench that uses this strap. It used to go around there until the stitching went bad. But this strap is old, and it works good for oil filters, but it was just slipping. It just could not grab tight enough onto this outer case, and it just kept slipping. So I took this old belt, which used to be my window pole for my rat rod, and tried it. Again, it just spun. So I got thinking, and I said, you know what? I'm going to soak the belt in water. So I got this good and wet, wrapped it back around this tool. Then I was able to use that extension, and gave me the room I needed to be able to drop down below it, so I had a swing. And lo and behold, that thing started to tighten up. Water started to squeeze out, and I grabbed right a hold of this, and boop, came loose nice and easy. When I took it out, there's the filter. You can see it looks pretty new. Let's see if we can. There's not a lot of stuff in there. So the last time this thing was run, it must have had clean fuel in it still. Now, the fuel that was in here was kind of crusty, rusty, and tarnished. There was not a lot of deposit on the bottom, but there was crap in it. But it did not get into the filter. So I got my fingers crossed that whoever rebuilt the carburetor did a good job on it, and it hasn't been infected with the bad gas yet. Now, again, it's had a long time. I expect carb trouble, but it might be one of those things where I get lucky that as it runs, it starts cleaning itself out, and we're good. But here's our new filter. Got this one from Napa. It comes with all the stuff on there. It's the right size, matches right up. So we'll be able to pop that in there, put the new seal around the edge, screw that sucker back on there, and stick our Eastern Hot Rodder decal on there and have it hidden under the car like it's a stalker. So we'll get that all back together. The fuel system will be ready to try at that point. Here's our gas tank we got. It's nice to see it's made in Canada. It was $259 through AutoZone. Spectra, I think it makes it. If I remember right, I can't remember the manufacturer. It did not come with this vent tube. I bought that. I had to stick that on there. It comes with a new retainer for the sending unit, and it also comes with a new O-ring for the filler neck. Now, our sending unit probably came with this retainer and the ring too, but of course it wouldn't come with this. But we'll be able to stick that on there, stick our filler neck in, stick the sender in, pop the gas tank in, strap it down, bolt it down, fill her up, and hopefully fire it up. So let's see how it goes. Yeah, that's a nice improvement. That sender has the float on it. It's not all scuzzed up and rusty. One of the things I did to make starting this retainer ring a little easier, I'll show you on this one, is these are flat. And as you spin this around, so as this clocks, you can see you rotate this around until this hits on this tab here, and that locks that in so it can't go anywhere. So they're kind of tricky to start because you got your O-ring there. And what I did is I took a pair of needle nose pliers and just slightly bent the tips of these down to help get it so it curved under here to start, and it made life a lot easier for me. So just a little easy trick there. All right, so now we're gonna get this tank in the car. All right, so I figured it out. It's because the fuel tank that I took out, the fuel line was run incorrectly. So it came down here. We thought it would come down here because that's how it was on the other tank. Came down here, tried to get it in here. It pinched the crap out of it, smooshed it down in here. I'm going, something's gotta be different. So we dug in the old tank to see if there was a difference. And other than it being rusty and stinky, there wasn't a difference. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me, that groove right there. So that goes just like that. And that would explain the tape on the stock tank. They probably taped that like that to hold it. Then it comes back like this and connects right to the stock line. So there you have it, folks. When someone puts something in wrong, that's not necessarily the right way to put it back again, is it? And because this tank came out the way it did, I thought it was probably the way it was routed stock. Turns out someone did it completely wrong. So we're gonna do it completely right. And we're gonna set this in here, throw a couple pieces of tape on there to hold it as we put it up in place to give us less of a headache. We're gonna put our stock tank insulator on there, go like this, this fits down in there. You can see there's even like a little bit of a raised spot where it used to be. And then, ta-da, we got our pigtail. So we're gonna take care of this and it's not gonna starve for fuel. All right, I feel much better now. Look at that, just the way it's supposed to be. Fits in there like a glove. We got plenty of room. See if I can show you. See, it still moves. And we got plenty of line to go to the stock fuel line. And we'll be good to go. One hose clamp, tanks in, strap down, tight, ready for fuel. This is great. I'm happy. Okay, so we made our little gasoline IV tube to fill up our float bowls. What I'm hoping we can do is get this to run down, maybe fill the line to the pump, and allow that pump to prime, and I'll give this thing a shot. So the battery hold down on this was wasted. So what it is, I just cut another piece of steel out that fits that floor where the battery used to be. The wheel well had some issues there, so we bolted it to the wheel well, and then made this bracket here. Keeps it away from this far enough where we don't have to worry about it arcing, and made a nice little decent hold down. Instead of using the regular T-Bird battery, which is kind of longer and narrow and kind of hard to find, it's a regular battery that you can find. We got this one at AutoZone, but you can find this size battery just about anywhere. It's a 58 series, and fits in there good and won't move now. You can shake the whole car with it. So let me check to see if it's squirting. I'm getting some smoke in there. Now let's see. Yes, it did fire that easy, but it didn't stay running because it turned out the fuel pump was bad. So we ordered a new fuel pump when we had to wait for that one to come in a few more days. My fuel filter, or fuel pump and filter combination actually came in today. So I took the oil filter off, and that sucker was on there enough where I had to crush it to get it off. We found an oil change sticker from October 2004 was the last time this had an oil change. This oil smells pretty gross, so I'm glad I'm going to be changing it before we really start running it. And since that oil change, which was 2004, it had 234 miles on the odometer since it was changed. So this car really sat a long, long time. So 234 miles in 18 years, it averaged 13 miles per year. So anyway, here we are. We got the fuel pumps up there. Going to disconnect the rubber line. That's the feed, and then the metal line goes up to the carburetor. I'm gonna drop that filter cartridge off just to give me more room to work. It's gonna be pretty tight in there, but I think we'll be able to get it. Let's see, we change the light angle there. You might be able to see it a little better, but the bolts are up above that filter canister. It's gonna be a little tricky. I've heard horror stories about it, but we'll get it done. So here's the fuel line. We tried to take it off on the fuel pump side and it tore, but just I want to show you guys why it's important to replace these things from cars that were sitting for a long time. You shouldn't be able to do that with a fuel line. So this fuel line got just old and brittle. So even if I got this running, how long would that have taken before that would have burst on me on the side of the road and possibly caught fire to the car? So don't mess around, guys. When you get a car that's been sitting like this one, it's been sitting for, what was it, Liberty, 14 years or 18 years since its last oil change. So all these parts have been sitting with stuff soaking in them. And the gasoline that was in that tank was in this line. It's no wonder that fuel pump's not working. I'm sure as soon as I tried to start it, it tore the diaphragm inside there. But look at that. So we got to get ourselves a fuel line now. All right, so people said that this takes hours. We've only been at it for a few minutes, really. And I got the first bolt out already. It's tight. I did not take the power steering pump or the AC off, which was recommended. But I think I can get it. I did take the oil filter off and the canister filter. The rear bolt, which I thought was going to be the harder one, actually came out easy. I did that one first. The problem I'm running into now is it's pretty tight clearance in here for the ratchet and the short extension to the body of the power steering pump. What I used for the back one was this extension. And you can see how it has that taper there, so it allows the socket to wobble so you can get around the pump a little better. That is probably a must. And then this one here, I had to switch to a short extension for the clearance by the power steering pump. And it just shortens how much room you got. You definitely have to take the oil filter off though. So we'll get this one off in a few more, hopefully a few more minutes, and then we can fight to get the other one in after we get that gasket area cleaned. Look at that lower radiator hose. It's like mushy. It feels like, I can feel the spring inside, but it's all swollen up and weird. I think it'd probably be wise to change that as well. It's like, doesn't feel like a radiator hose. It feels like a wetsuit. It's all bleh. So I'll probably have to change that. What's the difference between this swollen, mushy thing and this new one? The upper hose is the same way. Wow. All right, so now we got the fuel pump in. We got the new lower radiator hose on. We got room here where before it was resting right on this. And we got some room up here where it was resting there before. It's pretty tight there. I might end up cutting a piece of the old hose and just setting it up there to kind of act like an insulator. Ran a new fuel line. I like how it arcs up and gets away from the water pump or the oil filter. And it used to kind of sit on it. I didn't like that idea. So now we're gonna stick the filter in, spin that cartridge on, change this oil, top it off with fluids, and see if we can get this thing to run. I still have to tighten these up. I'm getting dripped on by antifreeze like crazy. All right, so we're changing this oil because the last time it was changed was 2004. That was only 234 miles ago. But it's still pretty gross. So we're gonna put some fresh stuff in. And once this is changed, we'll spin that new filter on and top it off, and we'll see you on the top side. It was done in by a crappy new battery and a carburetor that actually does need to be rebuilt. So we'll get the kit and we'll be back for part 3.